What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Actuali Podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm DJ.
And today we are going to have a little bit of a chill. We're just going to talk, hang out with all of you guys. You can throw out whatever questions you have while we're conversating here. We're going to explore the issue of how one may remain present amidst times of immense chaos and destabilization, uncertainty, so forth, such as the times that we find ourselves in. So really looking forward to that, guys. And thank you once again for being here. If you guys enjoy what's happening here on Actuali Podcast during our weekly Meaning Making 101 series, make sure that you smash that like and subscribe. Thread on your comments and questions. Share with your friends and family. Let's get this thing rolling because we're looking for nonpartisan conversations, figuring out how we can ameliorate, how we can heal, how we can engender some hope amidst this time of intense division and so forth. So thank you guys once again for being here. So yeah, man, it's been a crazy last number of years. 2025 is already kicking off. It seems like, man, there's more happening every single week.
Well,
and you can't even keep up with everything at this point.
Just since the summer, let's say from January last year to now, we've already had one full-on presidential assassination attempt,
right,
with another thwarted one, and then a few other ones they picked up earlier on. We don't know how true they are. We've had we've had a hurricane come through and flood people out, and FEMA totally failed. We did an episode on that. You can check it out. We brought the receipts.
Yeah, we did.
Then we had what happened down in New Orleans. I won't say terrorist attack because that has presidential press conference, and they I forget her name, but the press secretary, she did bring up that it's like, well, they were FAA approved drones. So it's like, okay, well, what the hell was that?
Yeah, what does that mean? Why?
What's going
what
on?
was the research that they were conducting? It's a really curious.
Yeah, so things have been crazy, and not all bad either. There's been the good times with it, but it's like, it's been a bipolar few years. It's like, oh yeah, something's good, and then like doom, and then something's great, and then doom.
Yeah. It's been wild out there, and and that's probably why we're all doom scrolling all the more now, and not to mention the increased high definition quality of everything as technology continues to accelerate forward. And everything is more catchy. The eye candy is more glistening and grabs your attention. It's more salient than ever. The apps are more finely tuned to suck us in than ever with their casino algorithms and whatnot. The AI is taken off like crazy. We got DeepSeek coming out of China, and apparently that's already been beaten by another Chinese company. Alibaba just put out another AI that's supposedly even faster than DeepSeek, but they're both actually learning and training themselves off of ChatGPT.
Yeah, so is that Alibaba, like who was the this top CEO founder of that, and the CCP disappeared him for a while, and then he came back. Mong, or
I don't remember his name.
Jack Mong,
wasn't he gone for like a couple years or more?
And then he came back, and it's like, is he a clone? Like, what's going on? It's like, no, he just got a struggle session.
Sounds like a long struggle session.
Yeah, well, programming takes a while, but anyway, so things are crazy. Yeah, well, programming takes a while unless you cheat, right? Yeah,
right.
Oh, man.
Let's discuss today, like, what has worked for you in the midst of all this insanity, to try and remain keep at an even keel, just remain chill. It's because it's so easy to get riled up right now, and then we're not able to make logical decisions or inferences. We have trouble. We're getting caught, all of us, in ideological bubbles right now, and we're becoming very tribal and partisan in our politics.
Those damn bubbles just come after you. They're like, and I think the best thing that's been working for me is when you get into that, this thing's happening and somebody's telling you something. It doesn't matter what the source is or anything like that. And then you start getting angry and you start getting emotional. You start yelling or not yelling, but like internally you're feeling this thing. It's like, I dig. I go down. I figure out, okay, what is this? what's going on, what's the truth of it, and if either it's sheer boredom that takes you out of the anger, or it's finding, I won't say the truth, but finding more to the argument
Mm.
that's being made.
So a willingness to,
Well, then, and also it's good to watch like the opposing side, quote unquote,
no, I agree
when
with
they
that. Yeah.
when they freak out and they do like the libs of TikTok kind of thing, where they're all freaking out. And then realizing that, like, on your side of the argument, you're seeing the same thing, and then sometimes you're doing it too. But I dig down if I'm getting angry and worked up about something. Well, almost desensitize yourself with it. Like listen to like 20 different people talk about the same topic, and then go find the original articles, or go find like if it's like a bill. Like right now, I just found out because of Timcast, Tim Pool, that in West Virginia, they passed some legislature that made it so basically my field of work no longer exists.
Right.
So
Yeah, something to do with independent contracting.
Yeah,
I saw that.
yeah, basically you can't, unless you're, like you can't get like somebody like, hey, help me out with this, I'll give you like $100, or do this, or like the small stuff. Like, why? My issue with that, and that's kind of making me angry, and I've been looking into it, and maybe ways to, like, who do you call to, and then how do you get enough people? But so basically, what it is if you own a business, or are well, yeah, I guess a business. So no matter what business you are, if you want contracted somebody to come in here, they either have to be like a totally separate company with its own framing. So what I'm looking at is, I'm going to work with a buddy of mine, and we're going to get the LLC, and we're going to get all the things. We're going to do certain specific things within that. But that costs money and that costs time. And there's a lot of people that ain't got money and ain't got time. Well, they ain't got the money, but they got the time to work and do stuff. So basically, like West Virginia made legislature in 2021 that screwed over probably half or more of its population, because it's the bit workers, it's the undocumented, under the table workers, it's the hey, like I'm trying to start a business for myself, and I need to build some capital. So like I know you, we've been friends for a while.
Independent contractors.
Let me paint your your storefront, or let me come in and shovel this. You mean to tell me everyone who owns a business has to find a contracted sidewalk shoveler?
Right.
They can't hire some young 10 to 16-year-old to shovel a sidewalk for $20, $10, whatever it is. And it goes more into it. It's in legalese, so it's confusing. I'm still trying to grasp it.
So it sounds like a stupid decision was made by our lawmakers. Probably has something to do with health insurance or something like that.
We'll see, because West Virginia got a replacement, like almost every single Democrat, and we were about 50-50.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more Republican than Democrat.
So we're getting a little off topic though. So basically you're looking at all this stuff.
I'm mad.
You're looking at
because I heard this. I looked into it.
Yeah.
I read the thing. I'm still reading it, and instead of being mad, it's like, what can I do about it?
Okay, so now you're transferring that anger into energy to do something.
So you know, like West Virginia screwed over its people in 2021 without letting anybody know.
Right.
And instead of being mad and yelling and getting worked into a tizzy and then captured by the activist types or whatever, but no activists are talking about that, because activists, like, at least in West Virginia, the occurring activism is like when we get large corporations and businesses in here that are either extracting or poisoning Jefferson County. So they get on that, and then they destroy themselves because there's no conservative voice, because anyway, it makes you angry.
It seems to start out bipartisan, and then the conservative voices or other alternative voices seem to get pushed out if they're not going to.
So instead of getting sucked into
very strict, certain left-leaning narrative.
Well, I guess my point with this is
so a lot of gaslighting going on.
It turns into a mob.
Yeah.
So first it starts with a grouping of people that are trying to be like, look, talk with each other, and we're upset about this. But then it's just complaining and then forming factions, and nobody's actually trying to figure out how do we get this done?
Yeah.
How do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Yeah. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. So there's no conciliation process, compromise, or trying to understand the other side happening, and things get stuck in the mud, basically.
Yeah. So I guess the best way to go about not getting caught into that sucked into the mob, which is the, even on the internet, you get angry and you start saying stuff, and then you're part of the mob.
Oh, easily,
So
man.
it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
dig, use that anger you got and dig, go,
Yeah, notice the
look.
conversations that we have online, how we're willing to say things online on social media that we would never actually say in person to somebody. It's really interesting how it brings that out of us. I just stopped talking about politics online for that reason because I got caught up in it so much.
Oh yeah, I don't do
And then I would
social
try
media.
and spend time up like I tried really hard to after I noticed myself getting riled up easily, I said, "Okay, well, let's step back. Let's come from a place of love and heart and understanding, and try and kind of meet people halfway. Um, let's, I'm going to try and talk about this in such a way that it doesn't feel divisive or confrontational, but more like we're side by side trying to figure this out." Those approaches are helpful, but you're still only talking to what, 300 or 500 people on social media. Really, only like probably 20 of those people are actually seeing the post. Maybe 50 or 100 if you get lucky are going to get involved in reading this, you know, firestorm of a debate that's going to come off. But it doesn't seem like much is happening in that process.
Well,
And
if
when
you
we're not using social media nearly as well as it could be used, but I think that's due to the casino style algorithms that are, really push things that are
well,
inflammatory and divisive
what do
and
we do it about
emotional
again?
to the
Because
top. Yeah.
there's no excuse. It's like if you want to have an opinion about something, you might want to look into it, because if you don't look into it, it's not an opinion. It's
Right.
either just recycling somebody else's opinion,
Right.
or it's BS.
Well, and you made a really good
As in,
point
like,
that we should be willing to look at alternative points of view to really try and understand the topic.
Oh, sure.
Even if it's only to better argue against those with whom you disagree, you should know their stance and their value orientations, why they believe what they believe, feel the way they feel. And then maybe you can argue better against it, or you can understand where their values are so that you can help develop an actual compromise. But if we're just coming at each other as though and there's a lot of othering going on nowadays where we're making enemies of one another, we're automatically assuming the worst, and we're putting these really broad, generalized labels on top of whole groups of people, depicting those whole groups of people as some kind of homogeneous blob that we can just attack. I noticed that we're going through a process of dehumanizing one another right now, and the only reason that a group starts to dehumanize another group is so that they can then excuse the violence that comes next. And so we're on a slippery slope right now. And the whole point of this podcast since I began it was to try and figure out how can we put our best foot forward to help create the change we wish to see in the world, because just trying to affect the outer is like trying to just attack symptoms instead of treating the root of the issue. And the root of the issue is within each one of us. We are society. Society is made up of a lot of individuals. So if perhaps we can transcend our ideological, egoic, psychological sense of self that we're all so attached to, and be less easily offended, maybe we can start making that change within ourselves, and it can naturally radiate out into the wider world. This seems to be the only way we can have a true and lasting, truly successful and lasting revolution. At least that is the feeling that I've gotten over a couple decades of being politically active.
On that note, I've got a recent quote from not Cat Stevens, Cat Williams. Sorry.
Nice.
Two totally different people. Respect them both, but
Both awesome people. Cat Stevens is a great musician.
The
and
age
poet.
of truth is not 1 year. It's the beginning of people having more of a thirst for what is true than an appetite for lies. So what that is
yeah,
it's not, oh, now we've become in this era of it. It's a incentivizing, or not incentivizing, but finding, well, nobody's making the incentives, but it's the individual incentivizing truth over lies, thirsting for the truth more than they're hungering for the lies.
And the truth is something bigger than ourselves. So instead of trying to be right, we're getting more focused on finding out what is right and true and good for one and all.
Well, and ultimately, if you're, totally selfish,
I like that switch
about everything too. What works best for the individual tends to work best, and I mean in long terms, not immediate gratification. That's like in long terms, what works best for the individual is what works best for the largest amount of people.
Yeah.
Now we do have
because the individual is the ultimate minority.
Well, and also if you just look at it, what is a society or even a planet filled with people? It's it's filled with individuals, and we're more the same than we're not. We all need to drink water. We all need to eat. We all need to have some source of social bindings, to varying degrees, but need to be able to be connected. Like hermits don't work out very well, and also hermits can be hermits because people go bother the hermits. They're like, let's go visit the hermit on the mountain. He probably has a better social life than you do. But anyway,
or at least a more honest one.
yeah. And well, okay. So when it goes back to, when I say like watch the other side, when they're freaking out and all that stuff, it's also not just to be like, well, look how crazy they are. And, okay.
You want to understand them.
And even understand, but it's also understand that what the symptoms are. So when you start doing them, you can be like, oh, that's what that is.
Oh, so you're talking about the most extreme things you can see the other side doing, the most offensive or troublesome or potentially
well, even like, like when you watch people like debating each other, having a conversation, stuff like that. And one guy's, just like really pissing you off in the discussion. And it's like, well, maybe it's because he came ill prepared, or maybe he's a gaslighter, or maybe he's this, that, or the other. But if you start noticing tendencies that person is doing, that you're also doing, that's a good clue to be like,
if it's pissing you off, you probably do that in some way.
Or pissing off is like, is it pissing me off?
If it rubs you the wrong way,
and it's not this or this or this. It's still pissing me off. It's like, well, maybe it's this and this, and it's something I'm doing that I think is weakening me. Because ultimately, it's down to what weakens you. I think it was Jordan Peterson that's like, was talking about that, at least originally that I heard was, looking or stop doing the things that are making you weaker. So a weaker argument, a weaker constitution.
Lying when you could be telling the truth.
Yeah, being intellectually lazy and just reading the headline when you could just take the extra 5 minutes to read down the article.
Doesn't that happen so much, though? You read a headline, you're automatically emotionally triggered.
I catch myself all the time doing it. Like I'll see like a headline or a thumbnail or something like that and be like, oh, here we go again. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, well, what is going on? Listen to the thing. Okay. You can put stuff on double speed if you have trouble looking at screens and reading off of them. Not everything, but most things you need are in a auditory format one way or another.
So the power of self-reflection, a willingness to reflect on one's own thoughts and feelings is really, really helpful here. And you can get good at this by practicing some kind of meditative practice or self-inquiry. Look up people like Ramana Maharshi, Jiddu Krishnamurti.
Well, even martial arts and working out.
Muji or Eckhart Tolle, Adyashanti. Well, martial arts is great as well. That's a movement meditation. We all still need a stillness meditation to where we just sit in the morning every day and you get yourself grounded in the sense of presence. And then the only reason that you even do that is so that you can learn how to maintain that sense of presence throughout the day. Life should be a meditation. It's not just when you're sitting down. It's learning for us to be truly present and available to every moment so that we can be attentive, so that we can react according to what's happening, not our misperceptions about it, to not be led around by our emotions, but to actually be in a dance with reality, in a process of co-creation. So we have the word sin from archery. It means to miss the mark, for your shot to fall short or go over to the side. And presence is what allows us to be in that state of flow where everything is more effortless and you're actually in your optimal state to be able to act in such a way that there's going to be less mistakes. There's going to be more of the ideal outcome that you're looking for without the effort team behind it, without the thinking process getting in the way. Our training can come to the fore and just do what it needs to do. But as long as the mind is busy with its inner ongoing monologue, that monkey chatter that it's always doing to itself, we're using up so much processing power in the brain that we're more likely to miss the moment. And it's so easy to get wrapped up and caught up in our thoughts and feelings. And when we're doing that, we're either stuck in reservations like fears and concerns about what's happened before in the past, or expectations, heavy expectations of things got to work out right for the future. And we're not here in this actual moment. When we're here fully present and available to this moment, we're actually going to act much more optimally. We're going to create better past. We're going to be working better towards our future. And there's less attachment and emotional upheaval involved. But this takes, time. And this is something that we all have to learn to cultivate. But while you're talking there just now, you were reminded me of this technique called the Zen step back. And this is, of course, in other practices. But it's a technique to where first we find what the sense of presence is. And that's simple. that is, and this is going to sound maybe very basic and not that exciting, but the sense of being alive itself, the sense of being here without the mental descriptions that come after about it, just the sense of I in this moment, being or beingness itself is, we could call this the ground of being. This is a place that we can always return to at any time, no matter what's happening. You're in the midst of an argument, or maybe you're out somewhere in a social event, you're experiencing some anxiety. You can take a deep breath into your stomach. A series of deep breaths will help actually totally reset the nervous system. It can totally dissolve your anxiety. It takes around, 10 to 14 breaths or so, but nice deep breaths into the stomach. Breathing also reminds you of your body here in this moment. You can use that as an anchor. And so I like to use breath because it's very easy, but you can also use, the sound of a car going down the street, kids playing outside, the wind rustling the leaves, the feeling of wind against your skin or your clothes on your body. All of these things remind us of presence. Use whatever prompt you like, but do so. Return to the sense of presence, and then you'll notice the mental chatter about the moment. Maybe it's a beautiful sunset, and the mind's like, oh, this is so beautiful. Stay in the presence itself. Keep returning. Say that you're in the midst of an anxious situation. You're breathing, you're just noticing that the body is in this state of trepidation or what have you. Notice the mind's thoughts about it. Notice how you're even aware of the thoughts as they happen. This is how we can remain still in the midst of chaos. And we can talk much more about this as we go on, but that's just a quick insight. I highly encourage you guys to start to practice anything that helps you remain more present, whether it be self-inquiry, whether it be yoga, your morning meditation, your morning walk, whatever it is. You can do this while you're practicing
You can
any
do it while
skill
you're
like
pooping.
dance,
You wake up,
brushing your teeth,
drink your
washing,
coffee, poop.
washing the
It's your
dishes.
thing.
You can always keep returning back to the sense of presence, and you'll learn how to be able to stay present longer at a time. Because everyone thinks meditation's about stopping the thoughts, which
Yeah, good luck.
good luck trying to stop the thoughts. As long as you are trying to stop the thoughts, it's going to be your ego trying to stop the ego, and it doesn't work. You have to surrender. You have to let go, and just be that watchful state of awareness that is there behind all the thoughts and the emotions. You'll notice you are able to notice your thoughts and emotions even as they arise in the body. But the part of you that notices the emotions and thoughts arising is itself quite peaceful. And that sense of presence is depthless. It is infinitely deep. So the more that you get to know this sense of presence and orient from this place rather than from the egoic or psychological sense of self, you'll notice a lot more peace and ease in life.
And I think it's not necessarily exactly the what you are doing, and like whether it be, sitting there under a freaking waterfall or doing some martial arts or, sitting in the sun. It's more of how what your intention is behind what you're doing. Like I could say like how you're doing what, like it's not what you're doing, but how you're
How
doing it.
available are you to the
But
moment? Yeah.
it's well, what are your intentions behind it? So, like so
Well, you
take
could. So the awareness that one
the
can return
intention
to.
is to step back and become in that awareness, opposed to people who meditate because their intent is some other thing and it's
Yeah.
maybe more egoic, because you can do that. There's been whole, cult phenomenons and occult phenomenons based off of that shit. Excuse me.
Yeah,
That
There's
were-
not even. It's even deeper than the intention. You can notice
Yeah.
attentions arising in the mind and
Yeah.
even be aware of that.
Well, first
and
you
it's,
have to
it's that
yeah.
non thinking side of awareness that we are returning to. This one has no agenda whatsoever.
Well,
so it's
the
just
going from
clean, clear, serene awareness.
Yeah, and going from the A, which be like this state, to the B, that state is not necessarily a logical progression either. You can't write a roadmap and turn left here and do this, put your hands in this shape, and
It's an unclenching kind of effect. So this is an undoing action. And the thing that's so confusing about self-realization meditation is that we think that it's a doing thing, that we have to do something. We have to stop the thoughts, or have to do this, have to do that.
No.
It's an undoing. It's a letting go of the doer trying to change what's happening so that you can actually experience the moment fully and recognize what we really are is something greatly mysterious that you can't put words to, but it is knowable nonetheless. And we can actually live through this place. In Christianity, they call us being reborn, and we call this, enlightenment. in the Eastern traditions, but this is something that is completely natural and all humans have access to, and the depth of it, our capacity for living through it, can be cultivated
Well, it comes naturally
throughout life.
it comes naturally to us as well. Like if you look at like infant self-soothing behaviors, and like that, the idea to like curl up and do this and do the comfort thing and then draw in and draw back, and then the relaxed breath after like the wailing cry when they first do the really big deep belly breath. That's
The body
that's their
automatically
brain.
knows what to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like first you're the chest breathing, you're freaking out, and then finally there's an interruption, and then you
That's like when an animal
yeah.
goes through trauma,
Yeah.
like a deer, almost gets hit by a car or shot by the hunter. It's gonna like shake off all the stress that it just experienced. Whereas
yeah.
we humans, we internalize that, we psychologically build a story around it, and we carry it.
Intellectualize
Yeah.
it, and try to because that, I guess, like there may be a
There's a function to that. We're trying to protect ourselves from the future.
Well, and I think it has something to do with like what the like us holding on to it has something to do with how we create identities
Oh yeah.
for ourselves.
Right.
Because you'd have like Ulfgar, the bear slayer, or things like that. So there's this identity with a story. So it's like, well, I went through this trauma. I am DJ the abused, or the whatever, to build these identity. And it's important to build your identity, and it is rough, deep, dark waters as well, to do that, because, well, your identifiers are not actually you. The self is the sticky thing that all those or is the sticky ball that all those things attach to. And if all you're concerned with is your identity, well, good luck with that, because half your identity is from somebody else identifying you as well. And that there's never going to be self-identity and another person identifying you. They're not going to be exactly the same ever.
Right. Oh no.
Ever.
Yeah.
You look at yourself in the mirror and don't see the same person I see when I look at you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
yeah, and we're all like that.
Yeah. And I think as living organisms, we're kind of like that too. Once we start to develop the idea of like not just self, but self and the other. And I don't think humans are the only ones who can do that. Like too many animals are cool.
But we do it
cool and
to a much further degree.
Well, we go many,
to the point
many
that we
steps.
think we are our perceptions.
Well, now we're trying to also have that relationship.
We think we're all the stuff that's stuck to the sticky ball.
Well, beyond that, we have the conception of not just myself and then the other self, but then there's this other self that's bigger than me. At first, we saw it as nature, and then we saw it as the animals, and then we saw it as people fallible like us, which is bigger and stronger and better, that did all this stuff, and then we condensed it all into one. And and so I guess like in short, the things you need to be able to do help yourself not go crazy when everything's going freaking crazy come naturally to you. All you have to do is basically just be reminded of what they are, because it's already ingrained in you. As humans, we're not a super old species, but we've been around long enough that our entire physiology is designed to help us
transcend.
Yeah.
Really.
Well,
to
that's
transcend
all
our
life is trying to
environment.
do is get
in
better.
our brain.
Yeah.
It's not even. I was listening to a great podcast today with John Vervaeke, and they were talking about how it's not that the brain is making a map of reality for the human body, or the mind. The brain, the mind is a map of reality. Just like Dawkins said that the cell is like a microcosm of a greater whole, or of the universe. So, and it's funny that Dawkins is the one that said that, but we ourselves are also like a microcosm of the universe. And recognizing that we are completely interconnected with everything and everyone around us totally changes one's perception of reality when you really sink into that.
Well, I think that's what the Hermeticists and others were getting at with the idea of as above, so below. It's not necessarily like, well, we have kings here on earth, so there must be kings in heaven. Even though the poetry of it helps to get you in that mind state, but it's the smallest reflects the largest. And even if it is just an idea, like, the largest thing we could conceive of is the solar system, or the planet system, if you think of everything going around the planet. And then, well, naturally, when we're thinking of the constituent parts that make up the smallest things, the atom, we had a central thing, and then things that spiral around that. And And well, if you zoom out and look at the universe, it looks very much like a brain, synapses. If you
Mm-hmm.
zoom all the way in the mush, it looks the same. Okay, so imagine this: there is a mountain. The dirt on the mountain and the plants that build up on the mountain naturally have the shape and the information of the mountain as they're growing out of
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Even the one plant growing on the mountain pretty much has the entire, like, has
Yep.
enough information in it that you can rewrite the shape of the mountain with a pretty good accuracy. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as in, like, if we were made in God's image, you hear that it's not necessarily as a guy with a beard and a pointy finger and all
Yeah.
that stuff. It is, well, we're creators, not just biological creators like the base animals, but we also create universes through story.
Mm-hmm.
Books, like games, movies, ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also create new technologies from those ideas. The nuclear submarine was imagined in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea long before it was an actual thing.
Mm.
Just light.
Instantaneous communication over distances in Star Trek.
Faster than light travel, which is looking more and more to, like, well, you're not breaking rules by doing that. You just have to go at another vector in order to get there. It's just we don't know how to shift into that vector yet. But once we figure it out, oh boy. So yeah, and you have all the tools to be able to do what you need to do and to be able to gather the information. You just need the intention and the will to do it.
So we need a lot more love, I think.
Well,
we need a lot
yeah.
more love and willingness to understand and appreciate other points of view, not automatically jump to demonizing and dehumanization and believing the worst things about people. I know it really seems like that side that you disagree with are really bad people, or they're falling for some really bad stuff, but it might be a little bit more nuanced than that. In fact, it almost always is. And that's what I've noticed as someone that's, it's pretty liberal, I guess, in a lot of my points of view. I've never trusted the Democratic Party as long as I've been a voter. Thanks, sis, for when I was about to vote for Bill Clinton, when I was able to vote for my first time. And she was like, oh my God, no, those people are corrupt. I'm like, really? Isn't that who mom and dad voted for? And she's like, just check out this guy, Ralph Nader. And then, so I looked at an independent voice, which had good things to say that countered some points from the Democrats and the Republicans. But yeah, anyway, long story short, I did some research on the Clintons, and I found out, oh, wow, they were involved in the BCCI money laundering scandal, supposedly with the Bush family. And the more I looked at things, the more I realized, oh my God, major financial entities have corrupted both sides of the political divide in this country, and it's been that way as long as we've all been alive here. And so a willingness to see that they're and I think most people in this country agree on that, yet we still get caught up in the partisan ideological wars. And
it feels
God, it's the way that I think a lot of Democrat voters or liberals or left-leaning people feel about Republicans right now, or Donald Trump and his administration and his constituency as voters, I think is so far from actuality. And it's shocking. It's actually quite relieving when you find out that people are not as cruel or evil or not at all racist or any of the things that we were believing them to be.
I would say, actually, though, but what they're probably experiencing is they're just reflecting what their party is and what they are. Like, there's a very telling.
We're showing party allegiance or group allegiance.
Well, no, I mean, like, particularly
signal.
With those who are dyed in the blue Democrats.
Okay.
And those who watch way too much TV broadcasting, they believe these things. Every time they say something like Trump is a misogynist, racist, and he only wants Latinos in the country so they can clean his toilets, but then they make the argument of, like, well, who's going to clean your toilets and do all this stuff? It's like, no, that's
going to take the fruit.
That's what you're thinking. And I saw a TikTok that was really interesting. It was
the fruit prices are going to grow up because now we're going to have to pay people a living wage, and we can't use that paid labor, that illegal labor anymore.
Yeah. Well,
those kinds of
we're going to
arguments.
lose our cheap labor. It's like, okay. Well, so the TikTok I saw that was jarring was this woman, basically claiming she knew what the Republicans were thinking about, or the MAGA people. They don't have to be Republicans anymore because MAGA is a pretty wide tent. But she was just like, yeah, the MAGA people, they're celebrating these fires in California and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like, I follow a lot of MAGA people and they're pissed. They're pissed because American citizens are getting screwed over by California government.
Yeah.
They're not celebrating it. They're not doing the eat the rich thing. And but what was stood out is that woman. She was saying this because she's like, because I know when the hurricane hit and it hit all those Trump supporters and everything, I was just celebrating and happy. And she admitted it.
Oh,
And okay, this is just one person, but it's like, no,
it's
like,
easy to do that when you dehumanize
well,
that
yeah,
entire group of people.
well, and that's if you don't get your crap straight, you reflect it onto other people, and you say you're doing this. You're pissing me off because you're doing this, and it's like, well, you don't necessarily want to do that because that's not good for you, and it's not good for them, and it's not good for anybody. It makes you look like an ass and turns you into a horrible person that would be okay with like what happened with the Nazis. Y'all call people Nazis all the time, but if you have these sentiments and you're proud of it and fine, and you want to just demonize the other one, and I tell you what, there's going to become a time when the MAGA thing is going to start drifting that way. And if we're not really on board with being like, no, we are not going to do that, we're going to go straight into that too. That's how we go crazy. Like that's how the communist revolutions happen. That's how the Nazi revolution happened, or after.
And
the
we
Nazi-
know both of these sides have been wrong. I mean, Donald Trump really gained a lot of notoriety and popularity for calling out the war in Iraq, for calling out George Bush Jr. and Dick Cheney.
And the only thing that's keeping him around is him handling when
because we all did eventually.
His own constituency calls him out.
Yeah.
The reason why I think he's a good leader, more than like, policies that are like, or anything like that, like, you can weigh them and like the person, is the fact that he does get called out by his constituency and the people around he surrounds himself all the time.
Yeah.
And I see him actually change because, I watch him enough, and not just the short clippets, but I watch him enough where he actually does change. And sometimes he changes the direction where I was like, well, that was stupid. You shouldn't have been listening to those, those guys over there. But, it's like,
I think that's the way we should be with all our politicians, right?
Well, that's the standard we should hold for ourselves.
Yeah.
Listen.
Dude, I've been
listen
wrong
to each
so many
other.
times.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love finding out when I'm wrong.
We should actually.
I hate the process, but I love finding out when I'm wrong.
We should be willing to get into that, to be willing to question our own conceptions, to challenge our most closely held points of view, because we're not going to grow otherwise. And certainty closes us off from new information. So I always see certainty, complete closed off certainty, as something incredibly dangerous. It limits our growth as a species and as individuals. And you need it, in the scientific process. You need to be willing to question yourself and challenge your own beliefs so that you can, if we care most about finding out what is true and good for one and all, then we'll be okay with finding out that we are wrong. We'll even be excited when we discover, oh my God, I've been wrong about that for all this time. But now I'm learning that it's so much more nuanced of a situation. It feels like you're on firm ground again. And man, I know we're looking for firm ground right now, so that's why we all fall into certainty. But get used to uncertainty. You'll find that it's incredibly freeing. You're always open for new information. You're willing to find out that you are wrong, as long as you can continue to upgrade and allow for standing for what is good for one and all. And that's a completely different orientation. It's a different posture to reality, but it comes from a place of heartfulness and care. You're willing to deeply consider things even when they're uncomfortable. And if you're willing to deeply consider things, you're going to be more considerate. You're going to be wiser. And this is like why Buddha said that it's not wisdom that leads to love, but it's love that leads to wisdom. You need love to be able to have wisdom. You have to care widely and deeply enough to be willing to see it all unconditionally, without preference. Just see it all and then make the best determination. It's a hard thing for us to do because we're all so easily possessed by our ideologies, by the groups that we're in. We all believe that we are
hijacked by our biology too.
Hijacked by our own ego.
Survival mechanisms.
And what is the ego? Just once again to revisit, it's the psychological sense of self. It's the story we tell ourselves about who we are, and it's the result of conditioning. It's the language you speak. It's the part of the country you live in. It's the TV shows you've watched, the friends you've had. We're all actually consequent of everything and everyone around us. And we're all actually quite malleable. You could think that, oh, well, I don't like country music. I like rock music. Yeah, you might find that there are some country songs you would like. We're malleable, and you can actually change and upgrade that personality. But the personality isn't who we are. That's the main reason we're so all easily offended. If you are being offended, you're being offended by somebody calling your ego something. Your ego is an illusion. It's a cast image. Your personage is not who you are. So why do we even bother getting offended when people attack our ego? That just shows how ego bound we all are. So being able to let go of that attachment to ego, that sense of misidentification of self, is so freeing for that very reason. You find out that, oh, I'm not this thing that people are attacking. And then you can even forgive and understand, oh, they're coming from this place of insecurity or that, and that's not my problem. And, I'm going to love them anyway. Life goes on.
Well, and there was something else too. I was watching the confirmation hearing for RFK. I watched most of it. It was just basically like white Republicans and venomous Democrats. But what I noticed though is like, they call out things like, well, back at this point in time, you believe this, and then now you believe this. What do you believe? Or, giving them in a false dichotomy of yes or no questions in something that you can't say yes or no with a belief that changes. And people's beliefs and ideas do change,
Yeah.
and they should. Even
would
if
hope, right?
sometimes, even if there's the error possibility of going in the wrong direction, we should
Yeah.
still hold open the idea of changing opinions. And even in our leaders and ourselves, and
Yep.
the leader in ourselves should be open to change. And then also us as the constituency of
Yeah.
our politicians should be open for them to change their opinion over time.
Yeah.
Because you don't believe the
Yeah.
same crap you believed
No.
when you were 20.
No. Yeah. Right.
I,
Yeah.
I, I don't
and our
believe in
beliefs-
Santa Claus anymore. I don't,
Right.
I don't believe that I'm not going to die and everything will be fine anymore like you did when you were a teenager.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
I'm not like, I don't believe in, the commie gobbledygook or any of the sentiments anymore. I really don't even believe in, what I believed in last week. It just shifts and alters and
Yep.
changes and
Yep.
skews. The core may stay the same.
Yep.
Cores of ideas may stay the same, but I think if you allow it, it can get better. And I'm not talking about being wishy-washy and, like, say like the people that go from one religion to another religion to
Mhm.
another, or
But
one
just
fad to
willing,
another
just
to
be willing
another.
to have scrutiny for your beliefs. Just be willing to investigate. Be
And-
willing to question.
Well, and also just be aware that the nature of things is to change. So the
Yeah.
more you can participate in that nature, the easier your life's going to be.
Because man, yeah, right, and it's so easy to be lied to as well. Like we all think that we're too smart to have the wool pulled over our eyes, and some things seem so obvious that why wouldn't you be against that? Well, it might be totally misrepresented, and it's incredibly. There are incredibly sophisticated psychological and manipulation techniques at play nowadays. Social media algorithms utilize them.
Well,
Mainstream media.
And the smarter you
commercial.
are, the easier it is to hijack you with these
Oh, well,
things
that too. The
so-
smarter you are, the easier it is for you to justify your own belief to yourself and come up with a reason not to, investigate it very deeply. Or you're just going to go on and confirm your bias by only looking at information from those that would confirm your belief. You're not looking for things that challenge your belief. You're looking for things that defend your belief. You have to be willing to look at the things that challenge your belief. You want to understand, how does the other side see this and why are they so certain about the way that they believe? You might find something there.
Yeah, there was actually a quote that I came across, and it's about love, but is I don't remember who it was, and I'm going to butcher it. But the base idea is, in order to destroy my enemy, I must know everything about my enemy, and once I know everything about my enemy, I love my enemy.
Yeah.
And so when I destroy my enemy, I destroy my enemy with love.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
one of
that
those
reminds me of
warrior-
Ender's Game. That's something Ender says.
Is that Ender?
In
Okay.
Ender, yeah, in Ender's Game in the first book.
And so
he says that's a general graph, I believe.
yeah, so I believe it was Ender's Game, but that's a profound thought though, and it
That's
doesn't have to
really
even be a
profound.
real person. We can
Yeah.
sneak these things in, but the idea is like,
You get to know your enemy well enough to think like your enemy or understand how your enemy thinks. At
And
that
you love
point,
them,
you
yeah.
then love them.
and then
Yeah.
you have to deal with them,
And then you still have to, yeah.
Well, and that's like the best debates and arguments and roundtables I've ever seen are people that
Willing
are
to steel
really
man each other's ideas.
really
you know?
trying to understand what it is. So most of
Yep.
the time that they get upset and angry is like, I'm just having a hard time understanding what your position is. I'm trying to understand what your position is so we can, that's where it's like terminology and, the lingo that you're using. It's important that if you're going to use big flowery words, you have to follow them up with an actual structural functional explanation for what they are instead of just using the flowery word, because that's just a bunch of sophistry. I use this big word that sounds fancy that nobody else knows what the hell you're talking about. And also, it's not a good way to communicate.
You're just trying to show how smart you are, and you're using that to try and buoy your position, basically.
Use the big word.
And then explain what the word means, if it actually is that helpful.
But in a way of not explaining it, but use the big word, and then the material of what you're talking about.
Let it be. Okay.
And then they'll be like, oh, that's what that word means.
In the context.
Well, that's context clues. That's how we learned, used to learn vocabulary when most of the country was literate, opposed to a lot of the country not being literate anymore because they changed all that stuff. So you can see I'm angry. The Common Core came in and the full word learning instead of phonics. And then, oh, man.
But you're angry because you care. Well, and then we can rid ourselves back in the part of ourselves that care, because it's really easy to let events and actions of others outside of us determine our emotional state. But we shouldn't give those events and people outside of us power over our emotional state. We should be able to have the capacity to remain in a certain state of stasis at all times, should we so choose. But it's a lifelong process of practicing to learn how to cultivate that level of peace and stillness within ourselves. But right there is a clue on how we can do that. We get angry because we care. And that care, man, I can just return to that place of care and be just as efficient, perhaps even more so efficient, without the stress ailing my body.
Well, you could anger. You can use
the anger as impetus for energy too.
Yeah, well, the anger is the energy. So you have
Ninja Bet is in the house. He says, "Take a breath, take a breath."
But yeah, well, that anger,
it's useful though.
If harnessed and focused, is a way to, you can use it to manipulate in the sense of like, you use heat to manipulate the metal. It can temper you, or it can soften you, or it can break you or burn you away. But if you use it right,
it's gasoline.
You can build with it.
It's good for the engine. It's good to help the vehicle drive. Just get it out of the...
it's what's inside the gasoline that makes up the gasoline.
Get it into the actual tank, though, instead of having it sitting in the front seat with you, or whatever it is,
well, basically the idea is, if you're an angry person like me, you use that anger as the impetus to get you looking instead of being lazy. Because it sucks to be angry and not doing anything, to the point like when you see men get angry, or even women for that matter.
It's not like anger.
They get up and they move around, and we move around when we hold on to too much, and then you freak out and you break down. But imagine if you use that in your mind to go, no, I'm going to find out. I'm going to find those numbers. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to see what's going on with this. I'm going to break it down from all angles. And then I can take a breath and go, oh, okay, now that I've done that.
Yeah. Well, you can even do that part calm. You just let the anger be the impetus. It's a trigger. It's a spark.
I don't want
you don't need to carry the anger.
I don't want y'all to confuse the expression or even the physical, like, emotive feeling of anger for what the anger is. The anger is an energetic response to something being wrong or not understanding something or an offense, but basically being confronted with something that is outside of your usual frame. So
sure.
Because like you can get angry from being scared.
It's a way to emotionally handle something being different from normal. You could react with confusion.
Yeah.
You could react with, oh, interesting, like a sense of kind of a wonder almost.
Well,
we can react with anger.
Look at John
the anger is going to happen sometimes when it's a human situation that you're looking at, and there's something that's particularly unjust happening. It can easily trigger that emotional state within us. But man, doesn't that anger and depression eat us up inside the longer we carry it? So immediately being able to notice the anger as fast as we can, and to say, oh, that's useful energy. I can see the fire. Okay, I'm going to use you now to inspire me to go ahead and help solve this problem. But I'm turning this right into love as fast as I can.
Imagine, I won't say John Wick loved. He loved his dog, but the John Wick thing, he wasn't, when his dog was killed, he wasn't raging at the world and crying and sobbing and everything. He was making things right. Now, he was a crazy assassin. That goes up differently.
Yeah, that's his way of making things right.
But it's a good story of, you killed my dog. I'm angry. I'm going to do the right thing. Rescue, to rescue myself from this. And now, mind you,
that's the right thing to him in that story.
But the reason why it's catching, though, is you can put it's such an outlandish character that you can put yourself in the shoes of like, okay, and then you can go through it. And throughout all of his motions and what he was doing, he was calm, but he was still pissed.
Yeah.
But then also, he learns his lesson as he goes on, and it becomes more than just you killed my dog and I'm pissed. Now it's, I'm unraveling the.
You don't need to be vengeful, kids.
No,
we're
this isn't advocating. Yeah, this ain't advocating violence. Well, you can take it, J.D. Krishnamurti. You
Yeah,
should check
Ninja
him out
Bet.
when he gets real angry. He gets quiet and very calm, and he, you know,
It's immediate. It's immediate, and then it's gone immediate. It's there for like a
yeah,
second or 2 seconds, then it's gone immediately. He never stays in the anger. You
yeah.
notice?
Or
Yeah. So Ninja Bat says anger can be a tool
yeah.
for accomplishment, emotional discipline, focus anger into positivity. And then Ninja Bat says, I split firewood. That's a great way to use that energy, man. That's awesome. Yeah. Let's not let these people outside of us or even these events in our lives rile us up so easily. And anger is a horrible state for the body to be in. It's the stress just destroys us.
It's a transitioning state. It is a
Oh, it's a response. It's a
What do you
secondary
call it?
emotion. It's a response to either sadness or fear.
what do you call it? It's a liminal experience.
Yeah. It really
it's
is a
to get you
spark.
from here to there.
Yeah,
It's not to
exactly,
be
yeah.
always be in. But I think anger is one of our most useful and our most destructive survival instincts.
They're all there for a reason.
Well, and like the ego is there for a reason. It allows me and you to have this conversation, other people to watch us as separate beings and learn that way.
Oh man,
but then there's also, like,
what a freedom there is when you realize you're not your ego. You just have an ego. And
yeah,
that
it's a
thing is
tool. It's a tool that's been
tool.
developed.
It's malleable, and you can do
Yeah.
whatever you wish with it.
But even, like,
And if someone insults your ego, it doesn't even matter because they're insulting an illusion. It's it's a cast image. It's not who I actually am. I have an ego. I have a personality.
it's like, so like, yet again, watching more, politics stuff, but the personal attacks on character, the ad hominem attacks, are just nuts.
Really?
And yes, the right does participate.
The right and the left. Yeah. No, they both.
Participate,
'Cause we're
participate in this, but all the left has right now, and I'm really sad about it because we do need a healthy left-right, but the left has gone so far left that anybody who isn't that far left is considered right.
And people on the left would think
but-
that we're going crazy saying this right now. They're like, you haven't seen that the right is turning into crazy fascists?
Well,
like
just define fascist for me. Like, go for it. Do you mean like Nazis? Because Nazis weren't fascists. They had, they like whatever, dude.
They were socialists, yeah.
Well, they were National Socialists,
Yeah.
and they believed that the Marxists and the fascists weren't actually, Marxist or not the Marxists, excuse me, the communists and the fascists weren't Marxist enough. Or so I've gathered looking through and reading and listening to stuff. And that's the other thing too, is like, well, you got to strengthen your argument. So if you're going to use a term like fascist or racist, communist, or what is it, crypto fascists, and all all these
Whatever
these
it is.
lingos we call each other,
Yeah.
it's like, well, look into what they are, and then you'll actually find that there's a lot of things that you personally believe without realizing that we're influenced by these, and that's how they.
That's
they
hard
catch
to
you.
hear, man.
Well,
People's
dude.
egos are like, nah, man, never.
Dude, read the early National Socialist stuff, like before Hitler, because Hitler wasn't the first National Socialist. He got his ideas from other people. A lot of the modern day American left would agree, workers' rights and all that, and oppressor versus oppressed ideas and all this stuff. And even down to the more like esoteric religious, or spiritual kind of stuff. It's in there because, well, there's been a long conversation throughout the entirety of humanity. We call it like philosophy that's been happening, and its roots go really deep. So yes, of course you'll find it, but then as the branches go out, it perverts the natural shape of the trunk and the roots and everything into something else. And, hey, look into it. You'd be surprised how much stuff you actually agree with the fascists and the Nazis and the communists. It's shocking.
So it's just their way of going about
or at least
solving the issue that is the problem.
Well,
So like the Marxist
yes.
communists, for instance, talk about the unfair distribution of wealth can be a serious problem in societies.
And basically they're
making good points. It's their prescription to solve the problem where hundreds of millions of people die. It's obviously something's off there.
They tend to believe in the demiurgos. There's this builder that is imprisoning us. And then there is this true reality outside of this one that is being held from us by this malevolent builder.
Well, that's going deep. A lot of communists and Marxists don't even know that.
Well, yeah, and
that's
actually
part
even
of it.
day to day, people who aren't politically affiliated with this stuff, still how they see the world is they see it that the reason why I don't have things is because they've been kept from me from somebody else. It's the same it's the same idea, just at different levels of focus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, are you focusing up towards a vengeful God, or you're focusing towards your fellow man as some oppressor, or you're focusing towards yourself? It's like, I just do the worst things towards myself and I can't get past myself and I'm just hurting, like doing that. It happens at all levels. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, and you would be surprised at how much that you're actually getting from Christianity and Judaism and Buddhism and other stuff that form your beliefs as well. It's not, we don't get our beliefs, out of that can be summed up by just one word. So you got to be really specific. Like when you call somebody a fascist, are you actually talking about that they are a fascist? Like they read Giovanni Gentili and we're like, yeah, this is what I'm down with. This is what I'm about. I'd like to the T. Or are they National Socialist, or are they like Wodenist National Socialist? Because the National Socialists, at least when Hitler got involved, were into, well, the God of the Jews is not the real God. They actually worship money, mammon. Whereas like we need to create this new religion, so we'll worship the European Germanic or what is that, Scandinavian Thor's father, Woden. So they're just like, well, my God's better than your God, and we're just going to shift off into this because your God's not true. You guys are the greedy ones that are holding back from us. And throughout, all of history of just, the Jews, speaking of the Jews.
And that was his justification to himself and to the people in some sense for doing what he did, which was complete insanity.
Yeah.
Of course, because Jews aren't like that by and large.
Now, mind you,
Jews are just people.
Statistically speaking, like, Jews are the basically highest earning diaspora peoples.
Because it's their culture, because they learned to work hard, because they were constantly being dragged down.
Is that a bad thing that they learned how to move around from place to place, gather wealth, keep their family together, be able to be good neighbors and trade with people? No,
basically survive in very difficult circumstances.
And hey, if you got rich, that sounds like an underdog story to me. So like, and I'm an American,
definitely an underdog story. But but it's so easy to fall into conspiracy
and be like,
oh,
it's the Jews, or it's the white people, or
because
it's the black people.
3 months ago, it was really fashionable to hate Jews and to agree with Hamas, in Palestine.
It still is, but there's an executive order, or not an executive order, but there's talks of one of if you're here on a student visa and you start doing that stuff, we're going to kick you out, which I'm down with.
Whoa!
Because if you're here on a student visa,
weren't Jewish people not even getting?
Oh, they weren't allowed in.
They weren't allowed into their own schools, their classrooms, even the professors.
Even though they weren't Israeli, they were just Jewish.
At certain universities and schools, this was happening, right? Because during the Israeli-Palestinian conflict,
there is no FACE Act for schools. It's only
now,
for clinics.
The side that's supporting Israel and the Jewish people, they're supposedly, Nazis now, right? So this is where stuff gets crazy. It's like we're involved in so much doublethink all the time, believing two opposing ideas nowadays, and it happens on the left and the right,
Well,
and
because it's not paying attention to not everything, but not looking wide enough. Not being humble enough. We tend to just look at the other side or only our side, but not enough to see where the general trends are going.
These two sides are like two wings of a bird in this country, and we're here to friggin' help each other calibrate. We have to calibrate together, because you need the left leaning, you need the right leaning, you need the up, you need the down, you need all of it together, because there's many different points of view, different perspectives. Once we start being able to see a little bit more through each other's eyes, we are actually going to gain a wider awareness, a wider sense of perception. We're going to understand complex problems from more angles and be able to come up with better responses to them that work best for one and all. So this is why we've got to be willing to see from each other's points of view. We got to stop demonizing and dehumanizing so much. And I don't want to go on preaching too heavy on that. But
so Ninja Bat,
it's gotten crazy out there.
He says evil preys on fear and the unfortunate. I agree with that part. However, I don't agree with the second part. The rich are the problem. Or first half of the second part. I don't think the rich are the problem. Like, what do you mean by the rich? Like, compared to me, you are the rich. So just for the fact that you own property is the rich.
Compared to the rest of the world, we are all the rich.
The rich. So, but
our first world
there is a deflecting from evil's true involvement, and evil.
And there are evil rich people. We're not saying that. Greed is the problem.
There are evil poor homeless people too.
And that's probably what Ninja that means. He's talking more along like greed, right?
Well, I have no problem with people becoming rich, and I have no problem with elites. And I don't mean like the current batch of elites that we have, which are like, I do have a problem with
because of
most
how
of
they
our
got
current
there.
well, and how they got there and what they're doing with it.
Oh yeah.
So,
Fair.
but saying like the rich or the elite, it's like, well, what do you mean? What do you,
Oh,
who's they though?
he's saying that
You know?
evil says rich are the problem. Evil preys on fear.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. See what you're saying
sorry,
there, though. Yeah.
thanks for the clarification. No, well, that's kind of true. Well, yeah,
It's a very low resolution way of looking at the situation.
also-
It's a lot deeper than just the rich because it's obvious. He's right. You
it
know,
holds,
it's obviously not all the rich.
It holds you back.
There's a lot of good people that are
because
rich.
then what happens when you become rich and you're not willing to admit that it's not the rich that are the problem, it's a deeper evil. Well, now you start becoming more evil, hiding stuff. You know, because like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is rich. He wants to tax the millionaires and
He
the
is though, man.
billionaires.
He is
He
though.
owns millions of dollars in property. And he's never worked a real job in his life. Not to say government isn't a real job, but I mean like real job as a producing job that you can actually say produce this amount of money or this amount of things. He's never done that in his life. The thing is, we should stop.
He did some good things for vets, along with I think John McCain back in the day.
Yeah, but you can't put a dollar amount on that or in anything else. That's a public service thing.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't get you
But
rich.
you're saying he's a career politician. He's been a politician all his
You
life.
shouldn't be getting rich.
We should have term limits on Congress.
Well,
I agree there.
And also, if your politicians are getting rich, you should really start looking into how they're getting rich. Insider trading is a big problem. And I'm angry about it, but instead of being angry...
Well, that's why so many Republicans didn't want Trump and so many Democrats didn't want Trump at the same time. Just because they're all making money off of energy and war profiteers.
I think it's like
military industrial complex.
Nancy Pelosi is like the most successful and the most abuser of that. But then you have people like Eye Patch McCain. What's his name?
What is that dude's name?
Yeah,
Collective Forgetfulness. Dan.
Yeah.
Crenshaw.
Yeah, he came out trying to be like, I'm one of you. Hey, kids. And then it just turns out it's like, no, you're part of the system. Yeah, and I'm sure he's an okay guy. You know, I'm like, but politicians should be held not with contempt, but with a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah.
And you should...
Because they're going to say things you like one day, but if you pay really close attention, you're going to find you don't agree with everything that person does.
I don't have a problem with a rich politician that has like a family business that they've run for the whole time and they've made money off of that and other stuff like that. I have a problem when you're using your knowledge of, how you're going to screw us over this week than to do some insider trading nonsense and then getting a whole bunch of money from lobbyists, the people that stand in the lobby and be like, we'll get your funding up to here and a little side for you and all. It's like, dude, and it's not a factor of being rich. I want everybody to become more rich. That's why I like capitalism, because capitalism actually did that. It made everybody in the world, for the most part, more rich.
It did. Yeah,
we have more millionaires and billionaires than we've ever had. You right now, living in the worst conditions in the United States, if you have a house over your head and access to clean water, are living better than even the richest people just a few hundred years ago.
Yeah.
You don't have to work nearly as hard to get what they have to do. You're not going to die from syphilis. Well, you have the ability to treat yourself or get treatment for stuff like that. Clean water is relatively accessible enough. If you live in America right now and you're not like, literally dying from some horrific thing, you have it better than most of the richest people in human history.
Yeah.
Almost guaranteed. I can't guarantee anything, but almost guaranteed, man. And so it's like, so what is that thing that makes us feel good to get this self-righteous anger and then point the finger at the other side, or doom scroll, or roast the libs, or roast the conservatives, or do that? Like, what is that thing? And I'm not entirely sure. Like, the Germans have this word for that feeling, the Schadenfreude, the delight in other people's misfortune. But it goes deeper than that. It's like you almost are subjecting yourself to it, and it feels good to you. It's kind of like, like cutters, who cut themselves to feel better and stuff like that. It's like, what is that?
I think it has to do with our tribalist instinct, that we're very tribal, and we want to demonstrate to the group around us that we feel most closely associated with, that we're on their side. And if we're not thinking critically about things, then it's very easy to be emotionally impacted and kind of thrown around by events as they happen. It's very easy to be taken in by the propagandists. It's easy to be sick, psychologically manipulated
It's
by.
easy to self-propagandize yourself as well. So,
Very much so.
and now that we have the
But I
choice,
think it all comes down to the fact that we're attached to our egos. We think our egos are who we are, so we're very easily offended. We're very attached to our ideas. I think it's all rooted in that misidentification of what we truly are. We think we are the cast image that we put out to the world, when in fact we each just have a cast image, and somehow that thing is, um, it's not what we really are. What we really are is what do you call it? Like the ground of awareness that's behind everything, but there's no word that quite encapsulates this thing. Um, but there is a sense of blissful peace that comes over the more deeply we cultivate that sense of presence, and that the word for that people have called God, they've called love, they've called, you know, the universe in many names, the one or what have you. But I think that is accessible to us all. I'm seeing a really good conversation happen here between Ninja Bat and Kimber Kano. What's up, guys?
yeah. What
Yeah,
what do you consider a living wage? Well,
yeah,
by definition, I would say living wage is the cost of their bills, and then and then extending that a little further, what is a living wage would be cost of the bills, and then enough to probably put um 10% of your bills, the amount of 10% of your bills in the bank for a rainy day. I think that would be livable, but that's all subjective to where do you live. By what me, because I don't mean like bills like, oh, well, I've got 15 subscriptions to all these things and I'm paying
yeah.
$1,500 a month for stuff you don't need. But so to answer that, for me, a livable wage is what you can live on. And I know it sucks to hear that, but like putting this idea, it's like, well, $8 an hour is a livable wage. No, we need 15. It's like, well, you're going to tank the system if you
And-
put limits to things. Well, you have to pay people this much. Well, what if I can get by as an American citizen, not an illegal, okay, or not a criminal alien, but as an American citizen? If I want to work for $5 an hour and it works for me, fine. And you know what's going to happen? More people are going to be able to do that, and then the price of things is going to go down and go down and go down, instead of we have to keep raising everything up over and over and over again because $15 don't cut it no more. We need $20. It's like, well, I can't afford to put out $20 without raising the prices, and then, well, the pay has to go up with the prices, and it's a feedback. And
Well, it's not a perfect system either. I mean, you got
no,
price
no,
gouging, you've got
oh yeah,
inflation, you've got greedy
you got
corporations in the mix.
public
You
and
got a lot
private
of people
greed. Yeah,
controlling, a lot of
sure.
these corporations controlling out the government rights laws and lobbying the government at this point. So it's really hard to say what is the solution for that, because we do all deserve to have a livable wage. We do all deserve to be able to make ends meet if we're working hard enough. And it is crazy to see how expensive things have gotten. The cost of living has dramatically increased. Back in the 50s and 60s, one man or woman could work as a gas station attendant and
250 an hour is great.
make enough
Yeah.
to have a family home, to raise a family, to save up, retirement and so forth. You can't do that anymore. So
So okay, so
cost of living has dramatically increased.
you just
The increase of the minimum wage did not match the rate of cost of living, but then there's good arguments to be made as should there even be a minimum wage,
yeah.
which is what you're going
Check out
into
Thomas
now.
Sowell. He's spoken on that a lot and is very
It's
clear
man,
about
that's a
it.
tricky one. These are the kinds of things I think we
Yeah,
have to figure out
I don't
together.
I don't think there should be a minimum wage. If people aren't willing to pay what if you have a population of people that grew up really knowing their values and knowing what they're worth, I think you would have the worker, quote unquote, the worker. Here I go, sound like a commie again. The worker would have more sway against the company, because then they're like, well, fine, like I know what I'm worth. I'm worth 30 an hour for these tasks that you want. And if you can find somebody better than me, fine, good on you. I'll go
Mhm.
somewhere else. Whereas if somebody's like, well, like I'm really good and I'll do it for 25. And if that person who did it for 25 turns out to be crap, so it's a weighing of, where is the, I don't want to say power,
So,
because
so
that's
you're
not
you don't have much experience in this job, but you're
well,
willing to work for $5 an hour
and learn.
until you're better, kind of thing. I see that
And
makes sense
if
to me.
not, but also it's like, $15 an hour for flipping burgers. If it wasn't for the fact that everything's so freaking expensive, it'd be like, you're joking with me, right? It should be like
Well, the problem that we find is
that should be a
you raise the
16-year-old
minimum
after
wage,
school.
and then the burger becomes $10.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But also we need to get back to, I think, it's okay to see a 15, 16, 17-year-old working at the grocery store, working at fast food, working at a gas station. What I'm seeing now is it's just old people.
That's really sad. And then also
you
everyone
know.
pushing their kids to go to college instead of also maybe going to trade schools,
Or
you know?
even say, screw going to any of that. Go be a trash man. Go pick up just an entry level job that, like, as soon as out
Go
of
be
high
an
school,
apprentice to a carpenter or something, but do something.
yeah, or go be a factory
Because
worker.
you can make easily
If we
over
start,
$100,000 being an electrician or plumber
well,
nowadays
the
too.
thing
So,
the thing though is we're not a producing nation anymore, and what Trump's biggest thing out of a lot of really big things is actually to bring
mm,
back manufacturing to the United States, which is going to be a pickle because it's like, where do we put the manufacturing? Because not to be a NIMBYist, but I'm in Jefferson County and I don't want it in my backyard. Now, light manufacturing, like putting things together, great,
right.
good factory jobs,
But not something that's destroying the planet
but on
faster
the
than
other end,
we
there's a
can
lot of
recover.
ghost towns throughout the United States that were booming towns, but then when the mine shut down or when the factory shut down, they just totally died off, except for a few poor
Right.
people
Look
that
at
were
Detroit,
left behind. So it's like
Yeah.
it's a balance, and nothing's going to be
Perfect.
perfect either way.
Yeah.
It's about an
Well,
optimization.
here's a really good conversation going on. So Kimber's Kano, what's up, baby? Talking about not sure their survival would be as achievable without a spouse, though, which is why many are moving back home with their parents. And
Yeah.
then Ninja Bat says Latino, Asian,
Oh,
Middle East culture
I think.
keep their families together. Whoa, what just happened?
Hold on, guys.
I think we're still up. They keep their
Oh
cultures
no.
together. We teach, so yeah, this is Ninja Bat. Oh, we did go down. What the heck? Where in the Sam? Hey, can you guys still hear us by chance? Did we just drop off completely?
Oh wait.
We coming back? I don't see anything so far. But we did just lose
I can hear us.
video. Okay, hey, we're still here, guys. Something just happened with our switcher, I think. Maybe it's something in the back there. Hang tight, guys. It's now just an audio podcast for a minute here. You can enjoy our voices as we try and get this screen working again. Yeah, thanks, Ninja Bat. Yeah, so anyway, to continue. Good. Yeah, so you and Kimber are having a great conversation here. When you brought up, Ninja Bat, how Latino, Asian, Middle East culture keep their families together, that's the way human beings did for all of human history before our modern age, isn't it? And it's sad, even American families, we used to keep our, we used to like have room on the farm for, oh, there we go. Hey, we're back. Okay, this should come back on for just a second, and you guys. Yeah, we'd always have room on the farm so that, the kids could build their home once they were of age, and we would stay closer together. And that's, it is kind of sad, man, that we've all like spread apart. And so many of our families are often, you know, hundreds of miles or thousands of miles away from one another, and we don't get to see each other as often as we used to. Yeah, we're back now. There's the video. I think that it might be.
And my internet connection on my phone where I'm checking it is out.
I
So
think it has something to do with the camera there, which
no,
has to do with our adapter, perhaps.
it's the bad battery pack. I think it
Okay.
got loose
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
kicked something down under. Sorry about that, guys.
Okay, we'll fix that. Not to worry. So yeah. Appreciate your all's thoughts here. And then Kimber says, I think everyone should have a livable wage, but I also want to have the ability to save and not just survive. Amen, right? Would that mean working until death since we're only getting a livable wage? Well, that's a question.
That's why you get the family.
That's why we're seeing all the elders working at grocery
Yeah.
stores right now, which is tragic.
Well, that sucks. That's why that's why we should have. That's the purpose of family, because if you don't have family who takes care of you when you're old, and that's what we've done forever. Like
Always, yeah.
it's very new that we have this idea where our kids just go out far away from us, make a family, on the other side of the country, and we don't talk to each other. That's new. That's a very Western thing as well. So one of the lesser things that I think of Western culture that we should kind of, it's okay to get your parents back in your house or live with them for a bit to like get going, or like come back and take over the farm, or like do that. And you're not gonna like.
Aren't our families getting more distant? It seems like.
Oh yeah,
man.
No, it's very
because
rare
the parents or the kids aren't as eager to take over the farm anymore.
Well, and
It
we've
seems
already
half the time it's
we're
or
already
stay close to the parents. Like, of course, there's the period of time where you're supposed to be pushed out of the nest. You learn how to be self
sure.
sustainable. But that's in order to come back and be able to take care of our parents as they get older,
Yeah.
just as they cared for us as we were helpless growing up as little children.
But when you don't, when you have the majority of people now aren't getting married young, much less have a good relationship with their families. Like, and I don't mean like there's issues with the family. I just mean like, don't have like that close knit family thing.
No, we'd rather be scrolling on these things than talking to our family, even when we're visiting during the holidays. I mean, we
Yeah.
are really separated from one another now. It's sad to see. Like we just aren't as close, and there's much less of the generational transfer of elders' wisdom to the kids
Mm.
anymore. We're not understanding what came before us as
Yeah.
much. We're
Well, that's that filial piety that
yeah,
our modern day left doesn't have. And I feel bad for them because there is no respect for those who came before us.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I agree, Kimber.
yeah.
Family is important, and our elders are sacred.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why we put the elders and people that come before us as sacred is because of what they've actually done to get us here. The only reason why we're here is because of those who came before us.
And a great point by Ninja Bat: trillions in government spending, so much waste. I think is what you're saying there. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, West Virginia governor makes 160K. Yeah, no.
While teachers aren't making a living wage. That's insane, right?
But you know what's crazy about that? The middle managers that aren't the teachers in the system and within the Department of Education, they make way more than the teachers actually do. And so, wait,
The
you mean
administrators.
the middle managers,
Yeah, middle managers. Gross,
and
dude.
the the policy makers and all that stuff. They make so much money. They don't do nothing but
Yeah.
hurt us. I'm sorry, but the Department of Education failed. It was put in to be like, well, we're going to get everybody so smart that everybody's going to get to the moon and we're going to be
Yeah.
like super scientists. And what did it do? It made our kids stupid.
I really feel this, Kimber. I want to be able to achieve enough to care for them. Speaking of your parents,
Yeah.
which is certainly a lost orientation in today's ultra independent society,
Sure.
and a general lack of care for previous generations. Yeah, we're so
Yeah.
disconnected.
Well, yeah. And even if,
We think we're so infinitely superior to everyone that came before us too. Like we have this perfect vision of the way things should be. Everyone before us was just ignorant and dumb and
yeah, right. Well,
wow.
and even if you're not able to make it to actually take care of your parents or even, have the kids to take care of you and everything, it is still probably the correct angle at which to approach life and family. Like, because even if you don't make it, at least you're in the right direction
Yeah.
and have in gearing yourself towards that. But what I found, like I grew up, I graduated high school in 2007. So that's my generation, right? Well, that was at the height of like, well, you need to, go to college and, screw your parents and screw that and, move out and do all this stuff. And don't you dare get married because it's just going to hold you back. And, like,
Yeah, don't have kids. It's just a waste of
don't,
money.
well,
and,
you
like,
can have them later. It's like, well, what happened? Like, what happened? What if you die? What if you have a horrible chainsaw accident
a lot of
and you
people
cut off your
legitimately
balls?
that
Like,
believe that the world is about to end too because of global warming or climate change, and they don't want to have
or
children
they
for that
want it
reason.
to end because they hate humans so much. There's a huge faction of like the eco warrior people that just hate
I
humanity.
don't know how many people like deep down in their guts really believe that.
No, but like the Greta
know,
Thunbergs
yeah,
and the Just Stop Oil people and the people who are like really, really
They really
pro
believe
abortion.
it,
I don't
yeah.
mean like it should be a woman's choice, but like, yeah, we need to abort more babies because there's too many humans. And that's more common than you think.
Man, this is insane. The superintendent of West Virginia makes $259,000 a year.
Yeah, and what do they do?
Jesus. And then Kim is saying how teachers often spend more time with their students than anyone else does. True story.
Well,
I
sure.
remember thinking
Yeah.
about that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was like, I see my teachers
More often
more
than
every
your
day than I
parents.
see my parents.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and on another end, it's like, yeah, teachers deserve
While having 10 jobs in one. Yeah, they do, don't they?
Yeah.
They really do.
and using their own supplies most of the
Yeah.
time.
Yep. Buying their own supplies because they never get enough.
But so I'm going to put a caveat in this: is teachers
Yep.
do
Yeah, there's Ninja Bet.
so-
My wife's a teacher,
Yeah.
uses her money to buy supplies
Yeah.
for her kids.
Yeah. So teachers, yes, deserve money, but we should also hold a higher level for teachers and get all these weird grooming type teachers, and I don't mean just sexually grooming, but ideology grooming
Mm-hmm,
teachers.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, get the sexual groomers out of there. The
Yeah, quit
ideology
thinking that
groomers,
you are
like I
superior
want
to
to
these kids'
I
parents
want to
you do
create
not
a
know.
queer space for
Yeah.
my kids. No, how about you create a learning space that teaches my kid how to read and do math properly, and where they can feel safe enough, but also like a little scared of you because you might be like, no, you're
Yeah.
not doing it right. Like you
And
should
there's a
also,
lot of different kinds of gay people out there. Just the queer political movement,
yeah,
queer
yeah,
TM as
yeah,
we know
yeah.
it today, not the queer of 20
And
years
hey,
ago.
if
but
you're straight, you shouldn't be
the
talking.
modern political
You shouldn't be
movement.
talking about your personal relationship with your husband or wife or your
Yeah.
girlfriends. That's not for school. So we need to. And I actually feel this way with cops too. It's like cops need to be paid more, but we also need to scrutinize them more.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
think there should be a camera in every single classroom.
They
That
need
if
better
you are a
training.
parent of
Yep.
one of your students, you can gain access
Yep.
to it.
We
uh,
even more. We need
by
more
request.
common psychological
Yeah.
evaluations, particularly when they go through traumatic experiences, which they have now. But it just needs to be everything needs to be turned up a little bit more. Better training, better psychological help, or access to at least less of a stigma around that kind of thing. Because these are incredibly difficult jobs. Being a police officer or being somebody in the military or being a teacher for that matter is incredibly
Well, a
difficult.
lot of teachers have to deal with these big kids.
So
that
we
are
should
just
have
beating
better
the crap
training
out
for
of them.
teachers too.
Yeah.
Like it should be really hard to become a teacher. I feel like it should be the best of the best in our society, and then they're going to be making 120K plus.
And maybe
But
not
it's
like
hard.
maybe not like the super whatever best of the best, but like
But up there, man, they
not-
got to be because they're the
well,
educators.
dude, I've had
know?
student teachers, and also like when I was in school, and then the new teachers that had come in were as dumb as a box of rocks. And it's like, how'd you get through college?
How
And
did
now
you
you're
even-
teaching.
yeah.
It's almost like teaching has become like I'll just get a business major, which used to be the thing. Oh, if you don't know what to do in college, get a business major. Well, if you don't know what to do in college, be a teacher. And
Mm.
and so and that's just one of a lot of problems. But there are solutions to them. Like there's homeschooling. There's
Yeah. Yeah, but there
Yeah.
are solutions, and we can sit with our kids and read
But
books
there's
with
no,
them.
and there's no one solution either. It's not like, well, we need to make the schools better or the politicians better. It's like, well, we also need to make the parents better
We
and
need to make
the
ourselves
individuals better,
to become better parents and better. We need to be better people in general.
create
and
better communication
Everybody's going
systems
to
and
have to turn up
networks.
and
Yeah.
open their hearts a little bit more. So this world definitely needs a lot more love in it. And
Yeah.
I know that sounds like a very simple solution, but that really is, I think, at the root of it is that we've got to be more loving and willing to try and appreciate and understand each other's points of views instead of just automatically judging and vilifying anyone that disagrees with us. We got to start working on this stuff together. I really like Ninja Bat responding to birth rates. We 60-year-olds won't have enough youth to help us elderly. So getting back to the population issue.
Japan's already dealing with
Japan's
that right
having
now.
that problem. China's going to have that problem. We're right behind them.
Don't worry, Ninja Bat.
We are not
we're
actually
gonna spend-
replenishing our population fast enough to have enough people to take care of the elderly anymore. And that's going to be a problem that every single young person is going to have one day.
That's what the AI and the robots are for. Don't you know? You'll have a robot that can look into your face and make you feel good and wipe your ass when you don't have any family to do it for you. Nah, I'd rather just be just dig my own hole and go lay it in the woods than have a robot take
I
care
don't
of
care
me.
how good the robot is. It can't possibly replace the parents that made me.
Or
like
the
the
children that
connection
I've
that you
had,
have from the
or-
people that literally made you through this miraculous biological process.
Yeah,
They can
well-
be helpful, and that would be great. But we need our elders because of their emotional intelligence, their wisdom, what they've been through, what they know, and
Yep, and the elders need the young people to
they teach us how to love. And I don't know if AI is ever going to be able to do that.
Well, and if it is, and the robots actually develop a type of a sophisticated enough and type of sentience that is similar enough to ours, where they're going to be going through the same thing, I think we should be open to start respecting them as persons.
Sure.
But it's going to be really hard to figure out when that's the case. And it may never be the case because they may develop into an intelligence that's so alien to us that personage doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, or its emotions are totally different than us,
Yeah,
and not
so,
even relatable. And
So how do you hold those many options? It is getting to 8:30, so
yeah,
got
man.
anything else? Yeah. I can see that's tongue in cheek. Neuralink will solve all also. Hello,
Right
yeah.
teachers, more training, as well as psychological resources for what they
Yeah.
encounter on a daily basis. Amen.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
solutions and
Let's change the game, fam.
Keep calm and
we
carry
can do
on.
it. Yeah. Keep calm and carry on.
you know.
Amen to that, man. Yeah. Try and practice that Zen step back technique, guys. Get a sense of what presence feels like, and that's very easy to do. It's just this present moment. The mind's going to try and start describing how things feel to itself. Notice that the brain is doing that. Notice the emotions that arise. You're doing all of this from, we can call it the ground of being, from a place of just pure awareness. And we're going to learn to cultivate the capacity for homing ourselves in that primary state of awareness evermore. That's the hope, right? So look out for people like Gangaji, Muji, Adyashanti. Look for Krishnamurti, Ramana Maharshi, Jesus Christ, Buddha, people like this that have been trying to tell us this for thousands of years.
And get in the conversation. Start, like get into philosophy. Philosophy isn't just a bunch of hoity-toity thinkers. It's actually an ongoing, very long conversation.
Yeah,
And,
let's work on ourselves and let's transcend our attachments and our opinions. Let's be willing to question everything, and let's be that change we wish to see in the world, because we can, I believe, change this world most effectively from the inside out. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you like what's happening here on Actuali Podcast, we do this meaning making 101 series every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So join us and like and subscribe. If you'd like to see this show reach more people, throw down your comments, throw down your questions. Even if you disagree, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And that's it, man.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've been Chris.
I've been DJ.
And we will see you next time.
Try to cue it up.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Oh, yeah. There you go. There you go.
Now we got some dances.
Yeah, let's dance on out.